Well, hello there, Nomads Group. I'm excited to be with you today and to bring a friend, someone who has been a blessing to me for the way in which she connects people, the way in which she believes in people. She is gifted in encouragement, empowerment. Lesa, I am so glad you are here today.
And I feel the same way and feel that this is a hugely important time in all of the way that God is moving, and your ministry, the timing of it. Who knew? I think how we say that, how timely and important this is right now. So super glad to be with your this group and with you, and so thank you.
You're very welcome. So those of you who are in the group, I want to tell you a bit about Lesa, and then we'll start in with some questions. And Lesa and I have kind of talked about what the conversation will be, and we'll get into that. Lesa is a senior associate for the Victory Search Group, they assist nonprofits to recruit transformational executive leaders. She is a speaker and an author for publications like the Dallas Morning News and Christianity Today. Her friends would say she's passionate about empowering women, and I would say that's been my experience with Lesa as well. She is proud to serve on the board of Inc. Inc. is a women's writing and speaking collective. She serves as part of the Committee for Security Grants Review on the Texas Women's Foundation. Are you sensing a theme yet, folks? And she also served on the board of Missio Alliance, focusing on women's efforts. And after spending some time in Nicaragua with the House of Hope, she now serves on their board. House of Hope helps women escape prostitution. And then I saw this note, which I did not know, Lesa, working on your first children's book in hopes of empowering girls everywhere. You got to tell me, give us the inside scoop, Lesa. What's the book going to be like?
Well, it's called Raising Boys and Then Being Blessed with Granddaughters. So they're little bitty tiny women, and my love of Joan of Arc, writing a children's book, kind of making her relevant, bringing her to today, making her cool and hip, and so we'll see. It's with some publishing houses. I've never written for children. I'm a huge consumer of children's books, and so we'll see. It's kind of fun. It's pushing myself to do something different, which all of this group is doing. I'm right there with you. So
cool, very cool. I can't wait to see that. Feel free to put me on the launch team whenever that time comes. I'd be happy to share.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Yeah. I have one more question for you before we jump into all this. You noted that you have a chronic case of wanderlust, and so I have to ask, where is your most recent trip been?
To Beavers Bend, Oklahoma, where we went with all of our family, and that's it. We were in a big old cabin, and we're learning to appreciate local, aren't we? That was a big deal to go to Oklahoma. So just saying.
Very cool. Was that your first trip out since the pandemic started?
Oh no, we've been out some, but very local, which is great. We went. I mean, it's just been great to appreciate what we do have, as opposed to always me. The person is always pushing where I can go furthest away. And that's a privilege, and so yeah, that was great.
Cool, very cool. Well, so let's jump into a few questions that I'm excited to hear your take on. As many of you who are in the group know, this transition period is ongoing. We're only entering this phase where women and men are going to be stepping out of ministry into spaces that are unfamiliar with them. And I'm preaching to the choir here, to this entire group. And I want you to know that there are a lot of people you don't know who are pulling for you, and who see you. And Lesa is one of those people. So help us understand, Lesa, because it's easy for us to there's kind of two extremes, right? There's the, well, I've been in church ministry, so I'm just going to go do nonprofit work. And so, boom, I'm there. There's the other extreme of, well, I've been in church work, and so that doesn't apply to anything. And I hear both of those extreme stories all the time, but maybe you could help us dig in a little bit and help us see the overlap between the work of a senior pastor and someone who works at a C-level type job in a not-for-profit.
Yeah, this is so good. And the great thing is that I have lots of experience of talking with folks like you. And so I am not speaking from, I'm speaking from experience. And what I want to say to all of you, you know, is that you are not alone. You know, what Trey said is that you're not alone. And those are two extremes I see also. That's so interesting, Trey, and have for years as we've helped people leave the ministry, and then also helped corporate leaders come to nonprofits. It's not that dissimilar that they feel those two extremes, like there's nothing in, you know, that could go together, or like this should be easy, you know. So it's always, as in life, you know, it's always somewhere in the middle. And I want to, and I also want you to know that if this is I don't know you personally, you know, all of you that are in this group, if this feels like a dark time, I want to say to you that you also are not alone. I've been through literally like a dark night. People refer to that where I did not feel God's presence. It was very, so I want to end with an encouraging prayer, reading from a prayer that really helped me, that might help you. Who knows? So I just want to be sure and say that I also speak from experience of knowing about unknowing times in your life. And so I don't speak from a void there. So it's a great question. I would say that the first thing that overlaps, there's many things, so be encouraged. But the first thing when I talk to my pastor friends is leadership. I mean, a senior pastor um, brings people-centric leadership, you know, and a corporation. And I would say this, Trey, that, you know, I would not say to your folks, you know, to not consider the corporate world, especially in Dallas or in the South, in the Bible Belt. There's a great respect for there's still a great respect for people who bring the faith part of their whole part of themselves. And so I wouldn't throw that out. You know, there's just some really incredible corporations that's an important part of their, so don't throw that out. Leadership, you bring a people-centric leadership. That's not always there in nonprofits. And so don't assume that it is. And so you bring that, you know, because that's what's important. Secondly, the ability to be nimble is a word that we use, you know, someone who juggles a lot. A senior pastor or any pastor, you know, you think of it, you know, I have friends that are like, yeah, I just, you know, unstop the toilet, you know, to then they get up on Sunday morning and preach, you know, because they are degreed and, you know, all of these things. So it's rangy. We call that too, a ranginess. You bring that to a nonprofit because they are going to be looking for that. They're going to be listening for that. And so you can tell those stories of doing all those kind of things, you know. So I think that you bring that mission focused, you know, what is just comes naturally or is just right in your head is that of course they're mission focused, but you bring that in a strong way when you come from a church setting. And so that is, you know, a good pastor, a good C-suite person at a nonprofit leader needs that, you know, to keep them on mission. I thought this, and this is the last one here for this one, is volunteers. Again, do not assume that the fact that you have learned the great art form of working with volunteers is a skill. It's very needed. And if someone came from the corporate world to the nonprofit world, they would not know how to do that. And you know, that's an art, you know, to work with people who you can't fire, you know, and you and yet you are very grateful for them. So those are some of just a few overlaps that I think, you know, you guys should be encouraged that you would bring.
Awesome. Clearly, my dog agrees with you in so many
Yeah, go,
ways.
go dog.
um, Thank you for that. I appreciate that. It is encouraging to know that what we have done applies to what we may do. And you don't know what you don't know, right? And that kind of leads to the second question is because we don't know what we don't know, we can be prone to make some missteps along the way. I I can only imagine some of the resumes you've seen over the years, and but also just the interpersonal and ways of communicating. So, can you help us avoid some of those before we step too quickly into problems?
Yeah, I wish more people would ask this, Trey. This is so so important and so easy to do, to walk over those things that you could misstep on. So I know a lot of pastors. I've seen a lot of pastoral resumes, and there was a time um in kind of resume history in ministries where it was like really cool to put on your resume like a picture of you and your family and refer to your amazingly, godly wife, and you're blessed with 7 children. And, this is nonprofits are more corporate today. And those are all stereotype kind of words. They're looking for a more buttoned down resume. So, that's a misstep. And when some people say, well, that's a very important part of my life. Well, great. That's great. But it doesn't need to be on your resume. And so that's a misstep, can be a misstep, a resume that just gets, has a picture and, so just have it look really buttoned down. They're looking for that. Um, so I wanted to talk about resume, and we'll talk about that a bit before, because it's the first thing they see. And the same goes with your LinkedIn, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And so you just want to get in the door, and so you don't want any missteps or anything to trip them up, that they would be like, oh, that's creepy, because they don't understand the mentality of why that was important in hiring for churches. So okay. um I think the first one is, and I loved your extremes, because this is exactly what I was going to say, is that um, thinking it's going to be easy to transition to a nonprofit. I have, it's very interesting, those sort of people that call me, and they come across, when I ask them questions about accomplishments, or why they come across self-protective and arrogant. And it's happened more than once, and I think it's just they're not aware of it. And so, what we would like to help them with, that you're trying to do, is that it's going to require humility. And I know that if you are not in a great place spiritually, emotionally, and you feel afraid, it's hard to come across. It's hard to dig into humility, and admit what you said, admit what you don't know. So I would just say, and I say to them, and sometimes it lies flat, I can tell, that you just need to maybe think of this, humble yourself to think of this like you did when you looked for your first job. Make the spreadsheet, get out there and connect, just like we told our kids, on their first jobs, get out there and connect with everyone. Think of it as a listening tour of folks that you admire. It just requires humility, and I'm sorry, but it does. So there's also the misunderstanding that people have time to help you. This is what I don't, I just, if I could say it so many times, don't, I'm stereotyping big, okay, here, but in the ministry, asking people to lunch seems an okay, like a thing to do. That's a lot of time from someone who's busy. So I would say swooping statement, but don't ask them to lunch. Ask for a 15-minute quick call. So they are very busy in the nonprofit world, and your attitude should be of gratefulness, not pushy. Why are you not calling me back? So for some reason, people don't do that. They are very pushy, and so it's unfortunate. Um, the the assumption that nonprofit is an easy job, or that my pastoral job was the hardest job in the world. And so it's just an interesting assumption. And nonprofits, just not understanding maybe the transition. And this is what one of my pastor friends said, is that, as a senior pastor, he didn't have a lot of accountability. He kind of did what he was the boss. He did what he wanted to with his hours. He came in when he wanted to. Nonprofit is more like a corporate job, like when, that first job that you had to clock in. I mean, you're accountable for your hours. That could be frustrating. And like he said, I thought I worked hard. I am working so many more hours. I'm so tired. So the assumption, just not assuming that. Control. I thought this was another interesting thing from one of my friends. You have a lot of influence, power, and control as a senior pastor or a pastor over a certain area. And in a nonprofit, you have a board, you have donors, you have lots of other, executive VPs at your level. That could be surprising and kind of jarring, that you're not that you're a nobody, but you're one of many. And that could be kind of hard, for the ego. I also thought of this, is that if you were the senior pastor that was preaching, that loss of speaking every week and using that time, which is, I know it's a burden, but it's also a privilege, to block out a day or 2 days to study. The loss of that, I think, just to recognize there's going to be that hole. And I know that you do this with them, Trey, but where are you going to fill it up somewhere else? Because you're not going to be doing that probably as a, in a nonprofit, unless you're the CEO, but even the speaking is really just, fundraising, so that's a very different thing. So I just thought about that. And then lastly, the misstep of, I know you work on this with people, is just the whole acknowledging that you might be having to run away from something, the misstep of not acknowledging that, and then eventually feeling safe at the new opportunity that you will get, of saying that to your safe team or board, of like, talking about the trauma. So the misstep of not talking about it when it's time. I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm acknowledging these things they're real, and you're a real person, with what you've been going through.
Thank you. One of the themes that I heard you say, Lesa, through all of that was so many of those missteps can be either amplified by or caused by unresolved pain from ministry. And unresolved assumptions that we carry with us out of ministry that we don't even realize we're just dragging along like, too heavy baggage. And new employers are going to pick up on that.
Yeah, that's good. Well said. Yeah.
Thank you. What are not-for-profits looking for right now? It seems like there's a whole lot of attention being paid to nonprofits right now in this pandemic world. And certainly we've had our ups and downs in the nonprofit world during the pandemic for our own reasons. So
yeah,
are nonprofits even hiring right now? Or kind of give us the lay of the land.
Yeah, well, if the missteps was kind of the downer answer, this is definitely the encouraging one, is that we only work in the nonprofit world. We only recruit for nonprofits. And, people say you can make a living, doing that, but we are busier than we've ever been. And I've talked to Trey about this, it is a candidate market. So the good for you, be encouraged. It's good news. And I know I'm only talking about the Dallas or North Texas market. So I was thinking of, Jeremy in Massachusetts, but I can't speak for all of those, but it is, it's good news. So the meaning of that is that they are desperate for good leaders. And so this is an opportunity to, and at the senior level. I mean, I'm not just talking, we're recruiting for CEOs, CFOs, places, chief program officer, places in fundraising, and so, looking at those, there's just more openings. So, and they're also willing to hire out of the box candidates. So these are all good news for you. Don't think, oh, I would, why would I even apply for that? So, and then I talked about this earlier, but the resumes and what they're looking for, and I spoke about that before, is that resumes that, that getting your resume to look more corporate. Something that I've seen before with my friends in ministry is that they're uncomfortable talking about metrics or accomplishments. They think that's bragging to talk about the size of their congregation or the budget they manage. Nonprofits want it, they don't care how big a budget. They want to understand that about that kind of thing, managing, that you're responsible for that, for your donors. So and also on your resume, just be, and to me, I just can't assume that you'll think this, but probably you do, a measured amount of Christianese talk. So have a neighbor, have someone read your resume and see if they understand it. I had one dear friend put, something from my past, that he listed the numbers of people who had come to Christ. And I grew up in the church. I mean, I knew exactly what he meant, but, I said, they're going to think you're, in a cult or something. I mean, you can't use words like that. So, and he took offense, he said, this is the most important thing to me. And I thought, well, then leave it on there. I don't know. So obviously all of these suggestions, you can do what you want. And then I was going to say that whether we like it or not, for now, LinkedIn is the way people find you. And these nonprofits, we literally have a researcher who does keyword searches, giving you a little secret here, on LinkedIn for people. She's looking for particular degrees. Does it say in there that they managed a staff? So you have to have all these keywords in there. So think of it as, again, try to think of it as an adventure, and get on LinkedIn and connect with, I would love to connect with you, connect with Trey, connect with the people that Trey knows, connect with me. I'm connected with a lot of nonprofit people. That's not weird. It's not like other social media things like Facebook. It isn't weird to ask to be connected to someone if you don't know them. And a little tip is that if I see that you're connected to Trey, then I'm going to say yes. So the more you connect it, you guys know this, but I'm just saying, get connected on LinkedIn. Lastly, I would say something that I've seen that's been lacking in my evangelical pastor friends, which in the world that I came out of would mean more white males. And so I'm referring to that when I talk about this, that they have not had much DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion training, and are unaware of their own biases on gender, race, marginalized people. It's just the world they come from. Okay. So today, nonprofits are keenly aware of their lack of that and seeking leaders with it. So in this in-between time, when you're like, what do I do at night? When I used to be visiting, parishioners, get some training so that you can put that on your LinkedIn and your resume. You already checked that box for them. So that's a good thing to do. Yeah, those are my, suggestions.
Awesome. Well, you've given me a couple of things to think about on my LinkedIn profile, which I pat myself on the back for, but also I'm like, ooh, I need to add that. And boy, I need to rephrase that. And so, yes, thank you for that.
And don't look at mine. Okay. Mine's absolutely horrible. Look at Trace. Everyone look at Trace. So, okay, yeah, I don't ever even look at it. So that's terrible, but yeah.
Well,
okay.
Not at all. And seriously, folks, if you're watching this, don't hesitate to contact me through LinkedIn because I do receive new contacts there, and I'm more than happy to spend some time on the phone with you, going, here's some do's, here's some don'ts, here's what I did, here's what I didn't do. Happy to do that for you. Last question before we close with the prayer that you mentioned. So I'm thinking about leaving ministry, and I'm thinking about, is this really where I'm supposed to be right now? All the things that are going on around me, I'm burned out. Um, I really need to start exploring my options. Lesa, what do I do?
Well, spiritually, there's a lot you can do, and that's what Trey's here for. And like I said before, it sounds so elementary, but try to think of it as a good thing. You again, you are not alone. I mean, this is literally, we are watching, a time in history that people are going to look back, and you're going to be a part of that. God is not there. Very, you are not alone. So I want you to know that. Um, you know, go ahead and get prepared. For, you think about the things that we've prepared for or not prepared for, with COVID, or how we all prepared for Y2K, and then we all laughed and everything. But don't put it off. It's just amazing how people, when they call me, they're like, oh, I'll have to work on my resume. I'm like, you should do that before. So just go ahead and help someone who's trying to help you by getting your resume looking right, getting on LinkedIn. I talked to one person that I thought this was, like we told our kids, I mean, go ahead and get the interview clothes that don't look like church ministry, but look like, nonprofit, just get your LinkedIn perfect. Don't put it off. I had one person say, if you're in transition time, go ahead and volunteer for a nonprofit that you love. Try to, get connected to get on their board. Maybe they're looking for board members who would bring, more of the spiritual part of it, that would be, like a chaplain, or, so go ahead and start serving somewhere. I thought that was a great idea. Again, I say, I know that it's hard in what you're going through, but humble yourself and ask for help. And you, by you even listening to this, is brave. This is brave. um, Something that I've learned from talking to people that you might not know, which I thought I didn't know, I didn't realize, is you don't need to tell all. You don't need to tell where you are if you happen to still be on church staff. In the cultures that I grew up in, it was, we're all brothers and sisters in Christ. Tell us if you're thinking of looking somewhere else. You don't need to do that. Please don't feel pressured to do it until you are ready to move. That's hurt a lot of people, because then it can just be reversed on you. And then also, I just want to say to you that it is not unbiblical to seek legal help on your transition. And there will be some elders that will tell you whatever that verse is about, we don't take people to court, in the Bible. I mean, that's just really practical. And again, it could be used against you. So those are kind of weird things, but I'm telling you, these are the kind of conversations that I'm having. Do your research. Find something that you love. If you've always loved animals, if you've always loved conservation, if you've, this is the time to do it. Go work for, the zoo. I mean, go do something that you want to do, rather than just getting out of church. I mean, this is it's an opportunity. Don't think of it that it's not. Um, Ideally, and we're not in an ideal world at all, but it would be amazing to leave where you are in a good place. And I don't mean they may be completely messed up, in their thinking, but I mean, leave in a good way if you can. That's just always a good thing to do in life, and be able to get them support, you know. Lastly, what you're doing right now, get this is what one friend said, get a spiritual director. I was like, well, Boom, we got this with Trey. Get a therapist, talk to your people about what you're doing. You're not alone. And so don't try to do this alone. Yeah.
Yes. I think if you could sum it up, that last sentence is so important. You are not alone. Don't try to do it alone. It is a lonely, isolated place to be in that transition window, both before and after leaving ministry. So thank you, Lesa.
Yeah. Yeah.
You offered a prayer over us, and I'd love to invite you to extend that prayer now.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I don't like Zoom. I love being with people. I like being in the room with people. I like to see your faces. And so I don't know you personally. Um, but I would like to close. I was on a walk last night in my neighborhood, and I just thought about the things that helped me when I went through a dark night. And this was the prayer that I prayed every night when I realized that God was silent during that time. And so I throw it out to you, and whoever needs it will hear. It's a part of I'm just going to read to you a part of the prayer from Thomas Merton. It's crazy that it was written in 1956. Y'all, God does not waste anything. This is so relevant today, or to me it is. And Trey can get you the link to the whole prayer. It starts with this: My Lord God, I have no idea where I am going. I've said that for so many years. I have no idea where I'm going. I do not see the road ahead of me. I cannot know for certain where it will end, nor do I really know myself. And the fact that I think I am following your will does not mean that I'm actually doing so. But I believe that the desire to please you does in fact please you. I will not fear, for you are ever with me, and you will never leave me to face my perils alone. That's in his book, Thoughts in Solitude. And a lot of people, you can just Google, it's literally become the Merton prayer. So if you feel like you have no idea where you're going, again, you're not alone. That's how Thomas Merton felt. So that's it. Thank you so much for letting me be with you.
Thank you for your time, Lesa. It's incredibly valuable. And thank you for sharing a piece of yourself and your expertise with this group.